The German reunification was the process in 1990 in which the German Democratic Republic joined the Federal Republic of Germany to form the reunited nation of Germany, and when Berlin reunited into a single city, as provided by its then Grundgesetz Constitution Article 23. The end of the unification process is officially referred to as German unity, celebrated on the 3rd of October. Following German reunification, Berlin was once again designated as the capital of United Germany. The East German regime started to falter in May 1989, when the removal of Hungary's border fence opened a hole in the Iron Curtain. It caused an exodus of thousands of East Germans fleeing to West Germany and Austria via Hungary. The peaceful revolution, a series of protests by East Germans, led to the GDR's first free elections on the 18th of March 1990, and to the negotiations between the GDR and FRG that culminated in a unification treaty. Other negotiations between the GDR and FRG and the four occupying powers produced the so-called 2+4 treaty, granting full sovereignty to a unified German state, whose two parts had previously still been bound by a number of limitations stemming from the post-World War II status as occupied regions. The United Germany is considered to be the enlarged continuation of the Federal Republic and not a successor state. As such, it retained all of West Germany's memberships in international organizations including the European Community and NATO, while relinquishing membership in the Warsaw Pact and other international organizations to which only East Germany belonged, namely, for political and diplomatic reasons. West German politicians carefully avoided the term reunification during the run-up to what Germans frequently refer to as Die Wende. The official and most common term in German is Deutsche Einheit. This is the term that Hans-Dietrich Genscher used in front of international journalists to correct them when they asked him about reunification in 1990. After 1990, the term Die Wende became more common. The term generally refers to the events that led up to the actual reunification, in its usual context. This term loosely translates to the turning point, without any further meaning. When referring to the events surrounding unification, however, it carries the cultural connotation of the time and the events in the GDR that brought about this turnaround in German history. However, civil rights activists from Eastern Germany rejected the term Wende as it was introduced by SED's Secretary-General Egon Krenz, precursors to reunification. In 1945, the Third Reich ended in defeat and Germany was divided into two separate areas, with the East controlled as part of the Communist Soviet bloc and the West aligned to capitalist Europe, including a division in military alliance that formed into the Warsaw Pact and NATO, respectively. The capital city of Berlin was divided into four occupied sectors of control, under the Soviet Union, the United States, the United Kingdom and France. Germans lived under such imposed divisions throughout the ensuing Cold War. Into the 1980s, the Soviet Union experienced a period of economic and political stagnation, and they correspondingly decreased intervention in Eastern Bloc politics. In 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan gave a speech at Brandenburg Gate challenging Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall that had separated Berlin. The wall had stood as an icon for the political and economic division between East and West, a division that Churchill had referred to as the Iron Curtain. In early 1989, under a new era of Soviet policies of glasnost, perestroika, and taken to even more progressive levels by Gorbachev, the Solidarity movement took hold in Poland. Further inspired by other images of brave defiance, a wave of revolution swept throughout the Eastern Bloc that year. In May 1989, Hungary removed the border fence and thousands of East Germans escaped to the west. The turning point in Germany, called Die Wende, was marked by the peaceful revolution leading to the removal of the Berlin Wall, with East and West Germany subsequently entering into negotiations toward eliminating the division that had been imposed upon Germans more than 4 decades earlier. Process of reunification. Cooperation. On the 28th of November 1989, 2 weeks after the fall of the Berlin Wall, West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl announced a 10-point program calling for the two Germanys to expand their cooperation with the view toward eventual reunification. Initially, no timetable was proposed. However, events rapidly came to a head in early 1990. First, in March, the Party of Democratic Socialism, the former Socialist Unity Party of Germany, was heavily defeated in East Germany's first free elections. A grand coalition was formed under Lothar de Maizière, leader of the East German wing of Kohl's Christian Democratic Union, on a platform of speedy reunification. Second, East Germany's economy and infrastructure underwent a swift and near-total collapse. While East Germany had long been reckoned as having the most robust economy in the Soviet bloc, the removal of communist hegemony revealed the ramshackle foundations of that system. The East German mark had been practically worthless outside of East Germany for some time before the events of 1989-90 further magnified the problem. Economic merger discussions immediately began for an emergency merger of the German economies. On the 18th of May 1990, the two German states signed a treaty agreeing on monetary, economic and social union. This treaty is called Vertrag über die Schaffung einer Währungs-Wirtschafts- und Sozialunion zwischen der Deutschen Demokratischen Republik und der Bundesrepublik Deutschland in German, and came into force on 1 July 1990, with the Deutsche Mark replacing the East German mark as the official currency of East Germany. The Deutsche Mark had a very high reputation among the East Germans and was considered stable, while the GDR transferred its financial policy sovereignty to West Germany. The West started granting subsidies for the GDR budget and social security system. At the same time, many West German laws came into force in the GDR. This created a suitable framework for a political union by diminishing the huge gap between the two existing political, social, and economic systems. German reunification treaty. The Volkskammer, the Parliament of East Germany, passed a resolution on the 23rd of August 1990 seeking the accession of the German Democratic Republic to the Federal Republic of Germany, and the extension of the field of application of the Federal Republic's Basic Law to the territory of East Germany as allowed by Article 23 of the West German Basic Law, effective 3 October 1990. The East German Declaration of Accession to the Federal Republic as allowed by Article 23 of the West German Basic Law, approved by the Volkskammer on the 23rd of August, was formally presented by its president to the President of the West German Bundestag by means of a letter dated the 25th of August 1990. Thus, formally, the procedure of reunification by means of the accession of East Germany to West Germany, and of East Germany's acceptance of the Basic Law already in force in West Germany, was initiated as the unilateral, sovereign decision of East Germany, as allowed by the then existing provision of Article 23 of the West German Basic Law. In the wake of that resolution of accession, the German reunification treaty Treaty, commonly known in German as Einigungsvertrag or Wiedervereinigungsvertrag, that had been negotiated between the two German states since the 2nd of July 1990, was signed by representatives of the two governments on the 31st of August 1990. This treaty, officially titled Vertrag zwischen der Bundesrepublik Deutschland und der Deutschen Demokratischen Republik über die Herstellung der Einheit Deutschlands, was approved by large majorities in the legislative chambers of both countries on the 20th of September 1990. The amendments to the Federal Republic's Basic Law that were foreseen in the Unification Treaty and necessarily for its implementation were adopted by the Federal Statute of the 23rd of September 1990, that enacted the incorporation of the treaty as part of the law of the Federal Republic of Germany. The said federal statute, containing the whole text of the treaty and its protocols as an annex, was published in the Grundgesetz on the 28th of September 1990. In the German Democratic Republic, the constitutional law giving effect to the treaty was also published on the 28th of September 1990. With the adoption of the treaty as part of its constitution, East Germany legislated its own abolition as a state. Under Article 45 of the treaty, it entered into force according to international law on the 29th of September 1990, upon the exchange of notices regarding the completion of the respective internal constitutional requirements for the adoption of the treaty in both East Germany and West Germany. With that last step, and in accordance with Article 1 of the treaty, and also in conformity with East Germany's declaration of accession presented to the Federal Republic, Germany was officially reunited at 0000 CEST on the 3rd of October 1990. East Germany joined the Federal Republic as the five Länder of Brandenburg, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Saxony, Saxony-Anhalt and Thuringia. These states had been the five original states of East Germany, but had been abolished in 1952 in favor of a centralized system. As part of the 18th of May Treaty, the five East German states had been reconstituted on the 23rd of August. At the same time, East and West Berlin reunited into one city, which became a city-state along the lines of the existing city-states of Bremen and Hamburg. In an emotional ceremony, at the stroke of midnight on the 3rd of October 1990, the black-red-gold flag of West Germany, now the flag of a reunited Germany, was raised above the Brandenburg Gate, marking the moment of German reunification. Constitutional merger. The process chosen was one of two options implemented in the West German Constitution of 1949 to facilitate eventual reunification. The Basic Law stated that it was only intended for temporary use until a permanent constitution could be adopted by the German people as a whole. Via that document's Article 23, any new prospective Länder could adhere to the Basic Law by a simple majority vote. The initial 11 joining states of 1949 constituted the Tri-Zone. West Berlin had been proposed as the 12th state, but was legally inhibited by Allied objections since Berlin as a whole was legally a quadripartite occupied area. Despite this, West Berlin's political affiliation was with West Germany, and in many fields it functioned de facto as if it were a component state of West Germany. In 1957 the Saar Protectorate joined West Germany under the Article 23 procedure as Saarland. The other option was Article 146, which provided a mechanism for a permanent constitution for a reunified Germany. This This route would have entailed a formal union between two German states that then would have had to, amongst other things, create a new constitution for the newly established country. However, by the spring of 1990 it was apparent that drafting a new constitution would require protracted negotiations that would open up numerous issues in West Germany. Even without this to consider, by the start of 1990 East Germany was in a state of utter collapse. In contrast, reunification under Article 23 could be implemented in as little as 6 months. Ultimately, when the Treaty on Monetary, Economic and Social Union was signed, it was decided to use the quicker process of Article 23. By this process, East Germany voted to dissolve itself and to join West Germany as 5 new states, and the area in which the Basic Law was in force simply extended to include them. Thus, legally it was the 5 states, not East Germany as a whole, who acceded to the Federal Republic. The 5 new states held their first elections on the 14th of October. The reunification was not a merger that created a third state out of the 2. Rather, West Germany effectively absorbed East Germany. Accordingly, on Unification Day, the 3rd of October 1990, the German Democratic Republic ceased to exist, and 5 new federal states on its former territory joined the Federal Republic of Germany. East and West Berlin were reunited, and joined the Federal Republic as a full-fledged federal city-state. Under this model, the Federal Republic of Germany, now enlarged to include the 5 states of the former German Democratic Republic plus the reunified Berlin, continued legally to exist under the same legal personality that was founded in May 1949. While the Basic Law was modified rather than replaced by a constitution as such, it still permits the adoption of a formal constitution by the German people at some time in the future. International effects. The practical result of that model is that the now expanded Federal Republic of Germany inherited the old West Germany's seats at the UN, NATO, the European communities and other international organizations. It also continued to be a party to all the treaties the old West Germany signed prior to the moment of reunification. The same Basic Law and the same laws that were in force in the Federal Republic continued automatically in force, but now applied to the expanded territory. Also, the same President, Chancellor and government of the Federal Republic remained in office, but their jurisdiction now included the newly acquired territory of the former East Germany. To facilitate this process and to reassure other countries, some changes were made to the Basic Law. Article 146 was amended so that Article 23 of the current Constitution could be used for reunification. After the 5 new Länder of East Germany had joined, the Constitution was amended again to indicate that all parts of Germany are now unified. Article 23 was rewritten and it can still be understood as an invitation to others to join. Although the main idea of the change was to calm fears in Poland that Germany would later try to rejoin with former eastern territories of Germany that were now Polish or parts of other countries in the east. The changes effectively formalized the Oder-Neisse line as Germany's permanent eastern border. These amendments to the Basic Law were mandated by Article 1, Section 4 of the 2+4 Treaty. Day of German Unity, to commemorate the day that marks the official unification of the former East and West Germany in 1990. The 3rd of October has since then been the official German national holiday, the Day of German Unity. It replaced the previous national holiday held in West Germany on the 17th of June, commemorating the uprising of 1953 in East Germany, and the national holiday on the 7th of October in the GDR, that commemorated the foundation of the East German state. Foreign support and opposition. For decades, West Germany's allies had stated their support for reunification. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, who speculated that a country that decided to kill millions of Jewish people in the Holocaust will try to do it again, was one of the few world leaders to publicly oppose it, as reunification became a realistic possibility. However, significant NATO and European opposition emerged in private. A poll of 4 countries in January 1990 found that a majority of surveyed Americans and French supported reunification, while British and Poles were more divided. 69% of Poles and 50% of French and British stated that they worried about a reunified Germany becoming the dominant power in Europe. Those surveyed stated several concerns, including Germany again attempting to expand its territory, a revival of Nazism, and the German economy becoming too powerful, while British, French and Americans favored Germany remaining a member of NATO. A majority of Poles supported neutrality for the reunified nation, Britain and France. Before the fall of the Berlin Wall, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher told Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev that neither the United Kingdom nor Western Europe wanted the reunification of Germany. Thatcher also clarified that she wanted the Soviet leader to do what he could to stop it, telling Gorbachev, "We do not want a united Germany." Although she welcomed East German democracy, Thatcher worried that a rapid reunification might weaken Gorbachev, and favored Soviet troops staying in East Germany as long as possible to act as a counterweight to a united Germany. Thatcher, who carried in her handbag a map of Germany's 1937 borders to show others the German problem, feared that its national character, size and central location in Europe would cause the nation to be a destabilizing rather than a stabilizing force in Europe. In December 1989, she warned fellow European community leaders at a Strasbourg summit that Kohl attended, "We defeated the Germans twice, and now they're back." Quote. Although Thatcher had stated her support for German self-determination in 1985, she now argued that Germany's allies had only supported reunification because they had not believed it would ever happen. Thatcher favored a transition period of 5 years for reunification, during which the two Germanys would remain separate states, although she gradually softened her opposition. As late as March 1990, Thatcher summoned historians and diplomats to a seminar at Chequers to ask how dangerous are the Germans, and the French ambassador in London reported that Thatcher had told him, "France and Great Britain should pull together today in the face of the German threat." The pace of events surprised the French, whose foreign ministry had concluded in October 1989 that reunification does not appear realistic at this moment. A representative of French President François Mitterrand reportedly told an aide to Gorbachev, "France by no means wants German reunification, although it realizes that in the end it is inevitable." At the Strasbourg summit, Mitterrand and Thatcher discussed the fluidity of Germany's historical borders. On the 20th of January 1990, Mitterrand told Thatcher that a unified Germany could make more ground than even Hitler had. He predicted that bad Germans would re-emerge, who might seek to regain former German territory lost after World War II and would likely dominate Hungary, Poland, and Czechoslovakia, leaving only Romania and Bulgaria for the rest of us. The two leaders saw no way to prevent reunification, however, as none of us was going to declare war on Germany. Mitterrand recognized before Thatcher that reunification was inevitable and adjusted his views accordingly. Unlike her, he was hopeful that participation in a single currency and other European institutions could control a united Germany. Mitterrand still wanted Thatcher to publicly oppose unification, however, to obtain more concessions from Germany. Rest of Europe. Ireland's Taoiseach, Charles Haughey supported German reunification, and he took advantage of Ireland's presidency of the European Economic Community by calling for an extraordinary European summit in Dublin in April 1990 to calm fears held by fellow members of the EEC. Haughey saw similarities between Ireland and Germany and cited, "I have expressed a personal view that coming as we do from a country which is also divided, many of us would have sympathy with any wish of the people of the two German states for unification." Der Spiegel later described other European leaders' opinion of reunification at the time as icy. Italy's Giulio Andreotti warned against a revival of pan-Germanism, and joked, "I love Germany so much that I prefer to see two of them." And the Netherlands' Ruud Lubbers questioned the German right to self-determination. They shared Britain and France's concerns over a return to German militarism and the economic power of a reunified nation. The consensus opinion was that reunification, if it must occur, should not occur until at least 1995, and preferably much later. Four powers: the victors of World War II, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States, comprising the four-power authorities, retained authority over Berlin, such as control over air travel and its political status. For the onset, the Soviet Union sought to use reunification as a way to push Germany out of NATO into neutrality, removing nuclear weapons from its territory. However, West Germany misinterpreted the 21st of November 1989 diplomatic message on the topic to mean that the Soviet leadership already anticipated reunification, only 2 weeks after the wall's collapse. This belief, and the worry that his rival Genscher might act first, encouraged Kohl on the 28th of November to announce a detailed 10-point program for overcoming the division of Germany in Europe. While his speech was very popular within West Germany, it caused concern among other European governments, with whom he had not discussed the plan. The Americans did not share the Europeans' and Russians' historical fears over German expansionism. Condoleezza Rice later recalled, "Any issues that had existed in 1945, it seemed perfectly reasonable to lay them to rest. They wished to ensure, however, that Germany would stay within NATO." In December 1989, the administration of President George H.W. Bush made a united Germany's continued NATO membership a requirement for supporting reunification. Kohl agreed, although less than 20% of West Germans supported remaining within NATO. He also wished to avoid a neutral Germany, as he believed that would destroy NATO, cause the United States and Canada to leave Europe, and cause Britain and France to form an anti-German alliance. The United States increased its support of Kohl's policies, as it feared that otherwise Oskar Lafontaine, a critic of NATO, might become Chancellor. Horst Teltschik, Kohl's foreign policy advisor, later recalled that Germany would have paid 100 billion Deutschmarks had the Soviets demanded it. The USSR did not make such great demands, however, with Gorbachev stating in February 1990 that the Germans must decide for themselves what path they choose to follow. In May 1990 he repeated his remark in the context of NATO membership while meeting Bush, amazing both the Americans and Germans. This removed the last significant roadblock to Germany being free to choose its international alignments. Though Kohl made no secret that he intended for the reunified Germany to inherit West Germany's seats in NATO and the EC. Conclusion. During a NATO Warsaw Pact conference in Ottawa, Canada, Genscher persuaded the four powers to treat the two Germanys as equals instead of defeated junior partners, and for the Six Nations to negotiate alone. Although the Dutch, Italians, Spanish, and other NATO powers opposed such a structure, which meant that the alliance's boundaries would change without the participation, the Six Nations began negotiations in March 1990. After Gorbachev's May agreement on German NATO membership, the Soviets further agreed that Germany would be treated as an ordinary NATO country, with the exception that former East German territory would not have foreign NATO troops and nuclear weapons. In exchange, Kohl agreed to reduce the sizes of both Germany's militaries, renounce weapons of mass destruction, and accept the post-war Oder-Neisse line as Germany's eastern border. In addition, Germany agreed to pay about 55 billion Deutschmarks to the Soviet Union in gifts and loans, the equivalent of 8 days of the West German GDP. The British insisted to the end, against Soviet opposition, that NATO be allowed to hold maneuvers in the former East Germany. After the Americans intervened, both the UK and France ratified the treaty on the final settlement with respect to Germany in September 1990, thus finalizing the reunification for purposes of international law. Thatcher later wrote that her opposition to reunification had been an unambiguous failure.